to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, April Gandy is on the show. April is the principal designer of Allure Designs located in Chicago. With 6 successful years in the design industry and an appearance on HGTV, April is here to teach us and talk to us about what you need to focus on both mentally and financially when working on a renovation project, and also how you prepare your clients for this. So maybe you've done a reno, or maybe you've yet to do a reno, or maybe you've done a dozen. But I think any perspective on this topic is valuable because anything that can make the process smoother, especially for the client, is always going to improve our businesses, right? And I think what you'll find is her biggest piece of advice about what to do and how to do this more efficiently is going to give you a huge sigh of relief because it's something you can start doing today. I love tips like that. Now, a little bit about April. Before starting her design career, April joined the U.S. Air Force Reserve in 2000, and she proudly served our country for 21 years. And I'm just going to say thank you, April. However, her design journey started informally when she bought her first property at 23 years old. In 2017, after a decade of working on personal projects, April decided it was time to make the business official. So herself, along with her mother and a close family friend, Jennifer Anderson, they created Alluring Designs. Together, they have overseen multiple renovation projects and countless room makeovers. You can catch April on HGTV's Renovation Resort Showdown, which aired this past September 2023. I'm very delighted to introduce you to April. Hey, April, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hey, LuAnn. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I love the topic that you pitched to me. I love this topic. You are talking about what can a client realistically expect when working with a designer, when doing a renovation project, both mentally and financially. And of course, since you have expertise in walking many clients through this, and of course, through your coaching programs, you're working with designers doing this. We're going to talk about maybe, some of your colleagues out there that this is new waters for them and they have maybe their first or second opportunity to go beyond designing the space, but now doing a renovation, and what can they expect mentally and financially, and how do they walk their client through these expectations? So knowing that, is where we're going. Where do we start with this, April? What are the starting things that you want to say to your colleagues about this?
So if you haven't worked on a renovation project before, it is truly an experience. To me, in design, renovations are one of the most rewarding because you get to truly make an impactful transformation. Not to say that you can't do that in the living room or a bedroom, but it's something that is a real investment for clients, and it is something that they will get that return back on when they sell their home or whatever. So it's a crucial thing to be prepared for it. It's a crucial thing to educate your clients and have them understand what the realistic expectations are so that they're not in a frenzy like, oh, why is this not done yet? Or, oh, I thought we picked something else, because inevitably something is going to go wrong. And so you want them to be prepared for it, and you want to be prepared for it too. So it is a beast that needs to be tamed before you allow it to grow into a monster.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had enough conversations with designers in real life at events and so forth, where that's a thing. It's like you yourself as a designer are starting to get those opportunities where it does include a renovation and you want to do it and you feel like you want to do it, but it's almost, what do I not know what I don't know yet? Because how can you be the leader in the process if you've not done it yourself? And I know a lot of designers, and you probably know them too, April, go through it in their own home, right? And that's sort of the guinea pig. But not everybody in their own home has the opportunity to also just knock down walls to see what are the problems I don't know,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's it's a, but the chops are there, right? Like you have the ability to visualize what the after could be like, and you want to walk a client through to that beautiful after, but the process is a little unknown. So what are some of those things? Because the same things that you walk your clients through with what these expectations are the same things that we're going to need to help designers understand, right?
I would say the very first place to start would be understanding how much it's going to be and
Hmm.
inflating that just a little bit so that if something goes wrong, or if you miscalculated something, or if your estimate comes back a little bit higher than it originally came in because they found something in the wall, or something wasn't updated, that your client doesn't have a sticker shock and it doesn't skew the entire project. um, Renovations are expensive, especially if you're doing a kitchen or a really large bathroom. And for a lot of clients, this can be a project that they've never done before, and they have zero understanding and knowledge of what they're about to embark on.
Right.
So you have to be the sounding board. You cannot show frustration, even if that contractor told you a date that has passed 5 times for a deliverable. Um, you
You're not
have to
talking from
maintain.
experience or
I'm not
anything,
talking
right?
from experience. I heard that happens every now and then, but yeah, you got to stay in the game. You got to keep your head in the game because your client is depending on you. They're literally like a little infant baby, and you have to, hold them through this process because a lot of times they just don't know. And even if they've been through a renovation, I've been through renovations in my own home, and there are things that come up that surprise me. So I can only imagine what it's like for someone who is walking into their house because, assumingly they're still living there. They see walls ripped out, they see the insides, and they can't see the end result. So you have to
Right.
keep them focused on what this is going to bring in the end and not what's happening today.
I love that. I love that. Keeping the eye on the prize, right?
Yes.
Keeping the eye on the prize. So the when you said the first place to start is to get a realistic investment range, but then to add to it so that they're not surprised because it's never going to be exactly what you think it's going to be. It reminds me of, like, at LuAnn University, we teach Design for Construction 101. And the reason that we teach that course is we enable a designer to completely put together all of their specifications, all of the selections ahead of time, ahead of break ground, whether it's a full design build up or it's a renovation, right? But I do know that many, many, many designers will not create a spec book, that they sort of design as you go. And I'm
Mm.
not knocking it. You know what I'm saying? But like, I guess what I'm saying is, put it this way. When I say I'm not knocking it, I do believe the other way is the way to go.
I
But,
agree.
yeah. Like,
My heart
it's not like,
dropped.
hey, yeah, no, right. It's not like, hey, stamp of approval for LuAnn to wing it. What I hear as a question before you've been around the block and you have enough experience is, if I don't have a spec book, if I don't have the expertise to create a spec book, I want to go to the contractor and get quotes, but I don't have it all figured out yet. And then he's like, say, I'll use a silly example. He's assuming 4 hi-hats. And when we actually go to design, it's going to be 8 hi-hats. And he makes assumptions, he or she, the builder makes assumptions, the contractor, that
I am not in a position, the client hasn't paid me upfront to do the full on design. They want me to do it as we go along, but getting estimates when it's not full on design is not an accurate estimate. Like, do you remember that point in your career? Because I feel like as you get seasoned, you don't do that. You're like, look, this is an idea of what this would be like, but I'm going to design it full on before we, like you're going to give me the a contract, right? But did you have a point in your career, April, where it was that nudge part before you were able to say, no, 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 no. In order to get an accurate price, you're going to pay me to design. If you decide not to pull the trigger, fine, take my design and run away onto the woods. But in the beginning, do you find that when you're coaching designers that that's a tough point?
Oh, yeah. And I think because we don't understand how to properly approach a project based on what you know could potentially be a pain point for the project, you approach it as, interior design is fun. And a lot of people look at it like, oh, you're just, prettying up things and you're, going shopping. And it's so much more than that. And I have done that. When you said it, my heart dropped because I've been there. There are so many mistakes in the beginning that you do, right? When I first started, I was managing the entire budget for the project in such a way that I was paying the contractor and the contract was with me and not the client. And that at some point, luckily, I didn't have any mishaps with that. But at one point, I realized, like, what if something goes wrong
I'm
and
on the
who's the
hook. Yeah.
liability on? And if something needs to be fixed, I can't fix it, but the contract is with me. So, in what I thought was, like a Walmart, so to say, a one stop shop for the clients, I'm just paying you and you figure it out. It could be detrimental to my business. So that was like one big thing. But understanding what you're doing before you do it is going to help you keep your timelines in check, keep your budget in check, but also keep your client in check.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my clients all the time, like, I'd rather tell you it's going to be more and it be
Yeah.
less than to tell you
Yep.
it's going to be less and it be more.
Yeah. And I would rather you do that too as a consumer.
Right.
100%.
Because I
Yep.
wouldn't want anybody to tell me it's going to be, $50,000 and then it ended up being 30,000 or $30,000 more than that.
More. Yep.
So we don't want to do that. But understanding what you want to provide to the client and giving them something to look at. I always do renderings for projects because I want
Mm-hmm.
them to know, like, this is what you're getting. And I want us to all be on the same page. All of the items need to be approved. The design needs to be approved because once it's installed, it's not as easy as just putting it back in the package and taking it to the store, so we want to make
Right.
sure everyone's on the same page about what you're getting. The contractor gets that rendering, the contractor gets elevations. You provide all those things so that there's little room for error. Because inevitably, like I said, something's going to go wrong. So you want to try to get ahead of things. But that takes some planning. And trust me, I pivot. One of my contractors, I'm sure at one point he was sick of me, especially when I did my own renovation, pivoting, we said we were going to do this, but let's do this instead. Because sometimes when you're a creative, until you see things, kind of dismantled, you
Yes.
can't really visualize where you can go. And sometimes, I'll come on a project site and I can see like, what if we did this instead? Because to me, as a designer, I feel a little bit of pressure with clients to give them something that either they would have never thought of or that they wouldn't have given
Mm.
themselves or something that I can be proud of and put on my website and, secure more business for myself. But you want to have that designer look. You don't want to have, your client's friends come over and they not even notice that they had a renovation, or they say, "Oh, I saw this, tile when I went to Home Depot the other day." You want it to
Right.
be something that is impactful and will bring the client's value to their home. So there are times where you can pivot, but that leaves a lot of room when you don't like have a plan completely. It leaves a lot of room for unknowns, and
Right.
it could completely blow your budget. And the sad part about a renovation is it's not like you can just, drop everything and move on. You
Change your
gotta
mind, right?
right. You gotta
Yeah.
finish. You can't say, "Well, I can't afford to finish this." Like, you have to find a way to do it, because that's the quickest way for your client to get on a Google review and bash you to no end.
Sure.
And we
Sure.
all know we live on reviews, right? So
That's it.
planning is crucial, and I've been guilty of it too. But you gotta put some thought into it before you tear up anything.
Right. So the planning part is the nudge, right? And I think that is, so how do you recommend that a designer, so do you actually say, look, you have to be in contract before you do a full plan, and you get paid to do that plan before you do it? Or, and step before that, like if I'm your potential consumer, before I pay you for the design plan, I'm going to want an idea of what this renovation is going to cost. Like, you can't just say, well, I can't give you the I can't give you the investment range until I do the full design plan, because I won't know, and I can't send it to the contractor until I design it. And my design fee is $20,000.
Mhm.
Like, you gotta hit me with a number. I don't care if the number isn't like to the dollar. So like, knowing that the first step is securing a logical investment range, how do you arrive at that budget, that investment range, without doing the entire spec book ahead of time? How do you do that, April?
So for me, especially if I'm doing something that's out of the norm, I want to add this, crazy feature, or I want to tear down a wall or whatever. Part of my process is coming out to do an in-home visit, paid service. Each step in my process is separate. So if you decide that you don't want to move forward, I've been paid, to come out to your home. I've given you design ideas, and you can take it and do it yourself, or, you can not do it and, whatever. But I've been paid for my time. The next step is I always get with a contractor, somebody that I know who either is, I've worked with them before, or I know that they would know what market prices are for certain things. So I'm going to get some information from them to ensure that I'm giving an accurate range. And so I'll never say it's going to be about $50,000. You want to give them a range. You want to say it's going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000. And when you get the amount that you think it's going to be roughly, you want to put a little bit of cushion on there too.
Yep.
So that way, if it does come back a little bit higher, because we all know especially if you're knocking down a wall and there's electrical in there, or there's an HVAC system in there, and those are things we can't see. So you always want to prepare the client for that. So when I'm providing an estimate, I will let them know, this is what I project that the cost of the project would be. It could go up, it could go down. A lot of things we can change. So once we get to material selection, maybe if we had, some unknown happen, instead of using marble, maybe we'll go down to porcelain or something like that. So there are things you want to let them know. There are things that we can do to help alleviate some of the costs that were unexpected. By changing out some of the materials, where you can still have a look that you want, but you're going to pay a little bit less for it. So you want to kind of let your clients know that all at once, and then they can feel confident, because the more information that you give them, and the more that they feel like you're educating them, the more that you assure them that you know what you're doing and you've done this a million times, or whatever the case, they're going to trust what you're saying. So it's all about building that trust. Once you have that trust established, you give them that range, and you're like, all right, we're good to go. Then my process is, it's two separate things. So you can get a contractor of your choice. I can provide you with recommendations, and we're always going to get a referral fee from that contractor if we're working on that project. We're always going to do that. And then for the contractor, they're going to write out their estimate. They're going to give it to the client, and that's going to be something that has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm getting paid for the design. And I've had clients say to me, because my process is, you're going to pay me half of my fee up front, and then you're going to pay me half upon delivery of the design. Now, if they decide we don't want to move forward with this, it's just not a good time for us, that has nothing to do with me. You got your
Right.
design, I'm the designer, I'm being paid for that. I've had a client challenge me on that to say, well, how do I know that you're going to stay, on the project, or what's your role on the project after you're paid out? And so you educate them again and let them know there are times in renovations where you have to pivot. And do you want to make decisions with your contractor, or do you want to make decisions with your designer? So I'll
Right.
be there to help you through those woes. I'm going to go on site and I'm going to make sure that they're doing it per design. So when I go in there, if I come with my tape measure and things aren't where they need to be, or, something's, awry, or something was installed incorrectly, those are things that I can see before the project is completed, so that we can remedy those things before we get too far into the weeds, and then it becomes a really big deal to fix things, and then you may end up settling. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that things are done right. And are you going to know what you're looking for when you're going into a renovation project? No, you're
Yeah.
not.
Right.
So
Right.
you want, and sometimes you need to ask clients those questions so that they can see it for themselves. Like, well, you're right, I won't know if the walls are open, if that's what it's supposed to look like, or if they're doing what they're supposed to do, or if they're at a certain point at a certain time in the project that's going to probably, make our timeline, go out of control. So those are things that I bring to the table. Now, if you
Mhm.
decide that you don't want to do this project and you got your design, please don't call me a year later saying that now you're ready to do it and you want me to come do site visits and all this other stuff. Like, that ship has sailed. So you kind of treat it as more so of an e-design at that point. And the client just has to understand that that's your process. So for me, it's two separate things.
So let me ask you something. So in that weeds there, you're obviously getting your consultation fee, then you're getting your design fee. And if they execute the design all at the same time, not a year later, does your design fee include those visits, that oversight, or is that a separate project management fee that you charge at that point?
So in my design fee is the design fee itself. Is broken down into three components. It's the design fee itself, it's project management, and then it's
Okay.
installation. So I don't care if the client says, well, you haven't installed anything yet. Why am I paying you an installation fee? Because that's my fee. And when the design is
Right.
done, that's what we'll do. Because when I'm doing installations on a renovation, it's really just coming in and putting your dishes away, or,
Yeah.
staging the cabinets with glass, or, whatever. So it's not heavy work. Whereas, when you're doing a room makeover, you're coming in and you're, placing things and mounting things on the walls and all of that stuff. So it's different, but
But your design fee, you're enunciating your design fee includes you making sure that the herringbone is going in the
oh
right
yes, it
direction.
includes site
Yeah.
visits, and depending
Okay.
on the scope of work, depends on how many site visits you'll get. So
Okay. So
you
you
get up to a
lay that
certain
out.
amount. Now, if you want me to come out because you think something is incorrect, or you want to kind of talk through something with me, then you can use that one, but now you're going to have
Yeah.
to pay me for the additional time that I'm going to have to come out to actually inspect things at the proper point of the timeline. So
Okay.
just having clients be assured that the scheduled visits that you have in your mind, that those are going to truly be the times that you need to come, and that you don't really need to worry about things before then, um,
Hmm.
generally helps clients. But yeah, I'll give them a set amount of site visits. And if they go beyond that, requesting to come out and all that stuff, that's my time. So I need to be
Hmm.
compensated for that.
Okay. Okay. And then so to the contractor though, back to that point. So you have relationships with contractors, and basically what level of detail do you need to give, cuz like I'm going back to that initial throw the consumer a budget, 50 to 80K. Are you Are you gathering that based on, past data in your firm? Like typically kitchens are, I'm going to say a number. I have no idea if it's realistic, 300 a square foot, and, family rooms are 150 a square foot. Like, where is that initial investment range coming from? And you said you're sitting down with contractors that you're friends with. Is it a casual conversation? Like, this is a kitchen this size, this is a bedroom this size. We're going to take down two walls. We're going to move the bathroom from one side to the other? Like, or is it more detailed than that?
Um, Depending on the complexity of the project. So, if it's just like a regular rip and replace, I'm not gonna, it's a very casual conversation. Oh, we got, a 50 square foot room that, we got X amount of cabinets. It's just rip and replace. We're doing, uh, standard this or whatever. So that can be a very casual conversation. If it's something where we're knocking down a wall or we're expanding or we're moving plumbing, we're moving electrical, where I know that those things can potentially blow the budget, then we'll go into a little bit more detail. Now I'm going to show you photos. I'm going to, maybe we'll get on a Zoom call instead of, just having a phone conversation. So maybe these are things that you need to see. Or if it's something that I haven't done before, like some design features, so I can send them just a general image of what I'm thinking about doing. So to do something like this, what would it take to do this and how much do you think it would cost? So having those detailed conversations for the things that are a little bit more elaborate, but more casual conversations for things that are pretty standard. It's usually somewhere in between there.
And basically what you're saying is, based on the past history with the contractor, you are able to come up with, so like a stranger contractor would look at you and say, how can I guess this for you? I don't know what kind of tile you usually pick. I don't know if you usually, like you said, do marble or porcelain. But once you have a relationship with somebody, there are some, I'm thinking about as a window treatment professional, right? There, like we had a designer for many years, every single project, this is going back into the 80s and the 90s, like every project was going to be lined and interlined. It was going to be very unusual that you were going to have a drapery weight fabric and not line or interline it. And every project had to have 3.5 inch, I mean, side hems, inside side hems, instead of standard 1.5. And the bottom hems, often I had to ask every time, do we want 4, 5, or 8 here? And the idea was that I got to know this designer well enough to know that even if this designer said, ballpark me 8 pairs of drapes, I'm throwing all those bells and whistles on because that was their standard. And then when we come time to actually getting, to the real actual site visit and coming up with a finite estimate, it might be, oh, here I don't want interlining, or here I don't want this, right? So that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's relying on the relationships that you build, having your own data, because you have to be able to, if it's a new relationship with a new contractor, you have to say, I'm typically going to want marble in these X spaces. I'm going to want quartz here. I'm going to want backsplashes, so that they can come up with a number, right? And then what you're ultimately saying is, if the contractor looks at you and says 50K, you're going to probably look at your client and say, figure this between 70 and 90.
Correct.
Right? Like, we're not going to anchor that 50,000 because that's the only number they're going to hear in their head for all of time.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And even if you give them a range, so let's say you tell them it's going to be between 70 and 100, they're going to say, oh, it's going to be 70.
Exactly.
You're going to
They anchor
say
the
it's
number.
going to be 100.
Yeah, no,
So-
they're gonna. That's why we don't ever say the number we think it is.
No.
Like, not when we're at that stage. If we think it's 50, we say 70. If we
Yes.
think it's 10, we say 15.
And I also tell
That's the
them,
way it goes.
like, the difference in the range is your materials. So,
Right.
or the impact. So we can certainly do something in here for
Yep.
70K, but it's not going to be what you would get if you paid 100K. So you
Right,
have to
right.
ask yourself, what's more important to you? Is the budget more important to you, or is the impact more important to you? So
Yeah.
that's also a thing that you can educate your clients on. But having
I
those
love that.
relationships with contractors, you're absolutely right. My contractors know April's not putting ceramic tile in here. She's not going to do, she's going to do this, she's going to do that. And once you have that relationship with people and you work with them over and over again, they know you better not quote me for some materials that you know that I'm not going to use. And I would tell them, quote me for the highest, quote me for
Right.
extra, quote me for, so that way I know that whatever we do decide to do, it should fit in that budget that we establish with the client.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love that. Okay. So then once we get past that stage, we throw the number at them, then they commit. And then we go to design. They commit to the design fee. They've committed to this range of the budget. Then you go to your design, and now you go back to the contractor and you get a more accurate number,
Right.
or do you just, okay, you do that, or you
We're
don't
going
just
on
leave
site.
it as an open end?
No.
Right. Now you say to the contractor, here's the pattern for the tile, here's the faucets, here's the fixtures. Now get me to a hard line on every item,
Well,
right?
not even.
No. Okay.
Initially, my visit with the contractor is going to be, so if it's someone that I haven't worked with before, I like to have meetings on site just to, well, we have project kickoff meetings. If it's someone that I haven't worked with before that's going to be doing the work, I want to ensure that they're on that meeting, because we're going to be talking about deliveries. We're going to be talking about, receiving things and making sure someone's home for it. Do you want these people in your house when you're not there? So how much work are we actually going to be able to do? So that way I can get in my mind what the timeline for this project is going to be, so I can schedule out my site visits. But I want to meet on site before I have a final plan or anything. I already have in my mind what I want to do, but I want to make sure that you're going to be able to do it the way I want it done.
Got it. Makes sense.
So
Makes
what do
sense.
you
Makes
think
sense.
about this? You could kind of show them pictures and examples of what you're thinking before you get to it. Because if I get that feeling, and if this is somebody that the client really wants to work with, if I get the feeling that they're not going to be able to execute the design desire that I have for the project, then I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do something a little bit different, because I don't want to risk it not being done right and my client not being happy. So, and that's going to happen all before I do the design, because you don't want to show your client something and they fall in love with it and you can't give it to them.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I love it. So it's the site visit, it's the exploration of the ideas, the concepts, what can happen, what can't happen, get agreement between all the eyeballs, the homeowner, the contractor, if there's electricians and all the things involved. Okay, that makes total sense. And now you go back and you start to really, in earnest, come up with some of the intricacies of the design.
Right. Because you got to know your limitations. I mean, sometimes there have been circumstances where I will go on a project site and meet with the contractor and they say, April, no, we cannot do that. This is going to be either. One time my contractor said, if we do something like that, I can't remember what it was, but it was on the second level of a home. And whatever it was going to be really heavy. I think maybe a slab, a stone slab on the wall or something. He's like, this is going to be really heavy. And I don't know if the joist and all that they have is going to support this weight. And I'm like, I'm aesthetics. I'm an aesthetics girl. I don't know nothing about no weights and no loads and nothing like that. I mean, in general, I know enough to be dangerous, but it's certainly not something that I think about consciously when I'm designing. So sometimes I can be shut down, because what it would take to do something like that, the effort, the cost, the time, it may not be worth it to the client. It may not be worth it to me. So is it really going to be that impactful? So there are times where I get shut down. They'll tell me, no, April, we're not going to do
Pick
that.
Pick up your crayons and go home, April. That's not going to happen.
That was cute, but not today. So that happens too. So that's why it's really good to understand what you can and can't do before you really get too deep into designing.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And again, I can relate to it from a window treatment standpoint as well. I've been there with designers. I'm like, ixnay on that idea. Stop talking about that. I can't make that happen.
Right.
I think I left something in the car. Would you come help me find it?
Cut it out.
Like,
yeah.
Stop selling that idea. It's not going to work.
That has happened. That has happened.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I have to say, just, has nothing to do with anything, but just that simple point. That same designer that I was mentioning that had the specifications that were always set, that firm consistently pushed us out of our box. That firm consistently, I'd be like, no. And the principal of that firm, he would often be like, yeah, the answer is yes. Figure it out. And I'd be like, man, I want to figure it out, But, it was interesting because that's when your creative edge really gets pushed, and it's fun. And a lot of times it does happen. So, but to your point, you said it might not be worth the expense, or the impact might not be worth the payoff. So it is that sort of
balance.
Just right. Really making the whole the decision based on all of the information, not just a slice of it. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are some of the I mean, whether it's on the positive or the negative side, some of the things that come to mind, like typical mistakes that you can recall making in your career outside of, saying the budget was 50 and then it really, really you thought it was 50 and now it ended up 80. Outside of the things that we talked about, I guess is what I mean to say, are there things that you can think, oh, this is something that I've learned how to avoid the problem that it is and how to avoid, or positive things that you've learned in the process that you're like sure to repeat each time because this really does impact the outcome of the whole process. Or maybe it could be typical misconceptions that clients have over and over that you are very aware of and that you go out of your way, like at the beginning, to just address head on because you know it's going to happen. Anything come to mind? I'm thinking also too, just to context for you, for someone who hasn't been through this before, right? What do they, like we said in the beginning, what do they not know that they need to know?
So, even as a seasoned designer, I have checklists for projects because we have this level of complacency like, oh, it's a kitchen, so we need cabinets, we need flooring, we need backsplash, we need countertops. You get in this, routine, and that's how things get missed. The assumption is, it's just a few things, I can knock it out, is, not a big deal. But you want to have that checklist of making sure, did I cover everything, especially when you're doing your estimates, because if you forget the cost of countertops in your estimate, that's a big deal.
Houston, we have a
That's a
problem.
big deal. And sometimes we're moving so fast, especially if you're really busy, like we were talking earlier and you mentioned about your one guest that had the kids under 5.
Yes.
If they get, somehow mixed up in when you're doing your design time and then you forget something, it happens. We're all human. So for me, I find that it's always beneficial to have some sort of checklist, and that could be the military in me, but I like to refer back to something just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, because like I said, I don't want to tell the client it's going to be higher than what it actually is. Or I'm sorry, I don't want to tell them it's going to be lower than what it actually is. I want to make sure that they're going to be satisfied. And playing with people's money is something that I don't do. I tell my clients all the time, I don't play with people's money because I don't want nobody playing with mine. And to me, telling you it's going to be $30,000 more because of my mistake is not a conversation I want to have. So you just have
I love that
checklist.
I love that you brought up your military background in this, because you shared with me your Air Force,
Yes.
right? So literally, I don't care if you've flown a jet 1,000 times, you're going to do it by a checklist. You're going to like 1, 2, what? Like literally, you're not going to say, I can do this in my sleep, I'll just skip the checklist. Nope. I love that analogy. Nope. And we're new friends, you and I, April, but we have a saying on the show. It's called our Erika Ward transferable skills. And I will encourage you to go to listen to Erika Ward's episode. I think it's 6 or 9 or 16. I don't know what it is. We'll put it in the show notes. But Erika was the first person who described to me how in her career in project management, she used property developer, project manager. She used to manage multi-million-dollar projects. And she said, I bring that expertise when I design your living room for you. Mm-hmm. Like it's all the things, all the ways that I brought together a multi-million-dollar project. It's no different if I'm doing $100,000 living room. And it's the same with you. With your Air Force background, you've got the checklist. And I love that. With my podcast here, like you cannot imagine the Monday board for my podcast production. Literally, we could all do it in our sleep. But I'm always like, when somebody new on boards, I'm like, do not do it by memory, sir. Do not.
Because you will forget
It is too important. Do not skip a step. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And so, because right now there's like, 3 or 4 people, 5, 6 people involved in getting the podcast from hello to air. And, the more people you put in the pot, the more somebody says somebody else did it, right? And the checklist is the savior.
Yes.
So whether you're an interior designer and you're doing a renovation on your own, you don't want to wake up with the cold sweats at 2:00 in the morning and go, did I this? Or
right.
You have a team, right?
I have been there.
That's exactly right. Right. And so, and it gets more complicated as you have a team because you're like, I think they know to do that. Right.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we live and die by our checklists in this business
Yes.
because of the multiple people in the hands touching it. It's like, I did my thing. Lou, like the one thing in the Monday to Word is Lou is done. Like, I'm like, Lou is done. You guys, I'm out. I'm out. Okay. Goodbye. Take it from here.
Yes.
When you and I get done, the Monday board will switch from interview scheduled to interview complete. You know what I mean?
And
Bang,
it's a
click.
check on the list.
That's it. It's a checklist, and everybody gets notified down the line. Oh, she finished that one, right?
And it
So I
sounds
love
so
that.
simple, but it's really huge. It's
It's
really
the thing
huge.
that gets forgotten
Yes.
often and overlooked because it is simple.
Yep.
I love that you brought it up. I love that. That's exactly why I'm like going gaga over it, because it is one of those things that we're like, okay, but then when you don't do it,
Mhm.
and I find not being a systems driven person, I am as right brain and scatterbrained and all the brains as any creative out
Me
there.
too.
And yeah, right. And it's like, and I love when it can be like a checklist like that. It's like everybody knows who did what when and if it's done or not done, because it does, you can breathe,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is a financial hiccup, then you typically can see where the disconnect was and who's responsible for that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good one for us looking at ourselves as interior designers and business owners is, don't make assumptions that, the Air Force pilot is not going to make an assumption. They're going to do their checklist. We can do that too for design, right? Like
Absolutely.
a whole lot less, impact if we mess up, but the impact is still great, right? Is there things that from the client facing side that you feel like it's a good thing to have a conversation about, or something that you typically know when you frame an expectation around a certain area that it has paid off for you, that you kind of repeat over and over again? Is there anything in that comes to mind, April?
What's going to be funny is that what I'm going to say is a checklist again.
I love
So
it. You can't
I
take that Air Force out of that girl. You just can't.
I have a Google Doc that we have just a standard template for, but we share with every client on every project um, what to expect, because there, can be times. So let's say we all know in the business that when you tile one day, you grout the next day. But for the most part, usually when your contractor is tiling, he's not there all day. And so your client can say, well, they came in today and they were only there for 2 hours. And like, I'm just concerned about the timeline and all that stuff. So having something for them to always refer back to so that they can reel themselves in. You don't even have to do it. Check that checklist. And you have to enforce it too. So when you create the checklist, when the clients have questions, you answer those questions, but you refer them back to the checklist. If you have an opportunity, pull up the checklist. If it's a Zoom call or whatever, and you can share your screen, pull up the checklist and see, this is where we're at in the project. You see these dates? You want to put dates in there. People feel good when they see spreadsheets and
Mm.
PowerPoints and all that stuff. So it really makes them feel like you know what you're doing and you have a process, and this is just the process. So if something goes awry, then you can let them know this is how it impacts the project and they can see it. I have learned that clients like to see things because they can't see what's going on in their renovation. They don't have the mindset most times to see the end result when things are in complete disarray. So you have to give them something to always lean back into. What I love to do is to put all those things in the signature block. So for my assistant, she creates unique signature blocks for every project, and we have a naming convention for it and everything. And so whenever we send them any type of correspondence, we send them their specific like signature. So it
Oh.
has, you can access your timeline here, you can access your dashboard here, you can access your room board here, so if at any point because we're going to send it to them in the beginning, but inevitably they're going to lose it. They're going to say, oh, I
Right.
don't remember, because there's so much going on in the beginning. And they're still absorbing it all, especially if it's their first renovation. So they're, like, oh, what did you, I know you said that. And you don't want to overload them with information either. You want to give them just enough. But if they do want to see a little bit ahead, you have something tangible that they can go into. So when they wake up at 2 a.m. with the night sweats saying, like, oh my God,
why did I do this?
what is this going to look like in the end? I can't remember. Go to my last email that I sent you, and you can go straight to your rendering, and you can see what it's going to look like. And you can, if we miss something, then let me know, but it gives them that comfort to know that we're on track, we're on schedule. We have, a pretty good idea of when we're going to be done. And it's something that you can live by. And it's going to be a thing too, just like with the budget. You want to tell them it's going to be a little bit further out than what it's actually going to be. So when you do finish, you're going to finish early. We're going to finish ahead of schedule. And they feel really good about that. And when they share their experience, that's probably going to be one of the things that they mention when they talk about you and the project and the process. They're going to mention that first. Like, she said that it was going to take 3 months, and it actually ended up taking 10 weeks. So, those are things that are wins for you, because those are things that they're going to talk about to their friends and, your potential next client.
I love that. I love that. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So like right now in my emails, my signature block has a link to the podcast, has a link to my book, whatever the heck, all my, wonderful team put there. You're talking about literally it's a link.
Yes.
For each of this, and you guys take the time whenever you email a particular client to change that signature block for their particular links. That is ridiculously genius. I have never heard that in 7 years and 1,000 interviews and 1,000 in-person conversations. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I know it's genius, because just this morning, my team needs me to do something for LuAnn Live, needs me to approve something for LuAnn Live. And I know it's in Monday. I have a good idea of where it should be in Monday. But what did I do? I looked at Diana sitting at the desk next to me. I'm like, could you just ping me in Monday? Like, go in Monday and ping me again. Like, you go in and find where it is in Monday and ping me so I can open the notifications and go right to the board. Because that is the thing. I could imagine, like you just said, like, how about if it's for a good reason? Maybe I've got my, my sister visiting me for the weekend, and I want to show you the renderings. Wait till you see what it's going to look like. It's like, here I am. I have no idea where that is. I looked at it 4 months ago. I didn't need it. Oh my God. I love that. Yes. I love that. Now, one other thing I want to clarify on that before I let you go is that spreadsheet that has, like, when you talked about the conversation about, like, the Tyler, the guy's going to come for 2 hours on Tuesday. And guess what? It's not going to be done on Tuesday, even though he only worked 2 hours. Like, I can see, like, why didn't he just put the grout in? Why didn't he clean it up? And why didn't he do all those things? Until you've actually tile, you don't realize, oh yeah, it's got a set and it's got a cure and all the things, right? So do you, because it's a Google Doc, is that a document that you're consistently, like, say you have your team meeting on Monday and you lay out that, okay, Sue the Tyler is coming on Thursday to lay it. She's coming back Friday to grout it. She's coming back the following Tuesday. Is that something that you're putting in that doc in real time, all as the project's going along? So it's a live thing, or are you just saying, tile is approximately the 5th week and it's usually a 3-step visit? Like, what level of detail are you going into on that for your client, for them to be able to follow along?
So in general, it's pretty much based on my site visits. So I know at this point in the project, if we started on this day, then at this point, maybe in a few weeks, you should at least have demo done. You should have this done. You should have that done. And you give them a block of time. So, in these next 2 weeks, these things should be accomplished. In this next block of time, all these things will be accomplished. So you don't want to give them, dates that you truly
Tuesday,
think
10
that
o'clock.
they're actually going to do it.
Okay.
But you want to give them something to go back to. So if they do have that complaint, like they weren't working here all day, April, like what's going on? So you redirect them. Well, if you look at the spreadsheet and see where we are in the timeline, they've only got 2 more tasks to complete before we get to the next phase of work. So I'm going to be coming there on this day, and I'm going to make sure everything is good because we're almost done with this phase of work. And so when we get to the next phase, then, you can see where things are. Some clients like to have a little bit more detailed information. So you can really meet the clients where they are so that they can feel comfortable about it, because, they got people coming in and out of their house, and, a bunch of people that they probably don't know, the contractor subbing out stuff, and, all of that. So, you still want them to feel comfortable. You don't want to just write them off, but you also want to be able to empower them so they can, research this information themselves and make sure that they understand what's going on in their house and with their project and where things are and all that stuff. So for the most part, it's just based on these things are going to be done before I come do my site visit.
Gotcha.
And that way it protects me too, because if they say, April, on this spreadsheet, you said you were coming on Friday. Why aren't you coming? Why didn't you come? And I could say, well, the tile isn't done yet, so I don't want to have to charge you to come out for another time. I'm just going to adjust the timeline to make sure that I'm visiting when it's an appropriate time.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so just so I understand is what you're saying is, if it takes 3 visits to do tile, you're giving a 2 or 3 week window that tile and other things that are happening in that phase are getting done. So if I'm crazy lady and I call you up and I say, he was only here or she was only here for 3 hours, you're just going to say, hey, as long as it's done by the 2 week and we get to the next phase, stop talking to me about this. Like, we're on schedule.
We're on schedule.
Got it.
Trust the process.
Yep. Like, everything doesn't happen in one day, but it happens during that phase.
Right.
I love that. You know what? And even like just having that conversation at the beginning, then I'm not like over monitoring, what's happening. I would be the person that would be like, oh, they were here for 2 hours and it only looks one half done. And I'd be like, whatever. And I would trust the process. Vinny would be like, hey, your guy left. Why didn't you finish? You know what I mean? He would be that guy. Like, it's been 2 hours. He went to lunch. He never came back. What's going on? And I'd be like, Nagara, relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because you have all different personalities that you're working with.
Yes.
And that is the truth of it.
And we know I've had clients that are spreadsheet driven. Like, I want to know a timeline. People are just different, and there are some people who are like, oh, I hired you and I'm not even going to think about this. And there are other people who have an opinion about everything. So you have,
hopefully you figured that out in the beginning and you charged a little more.
Oh, yes. And especially if it's a returning client, then you better make sure that you put that extra, I got to deal with you fee in there too.
That's it.
But yeah, when I'm doing coaching, I share all of those things, like the spreadsheets and the processes that we use, because people really hold on to that. If you present I do a PowerPoint on meet and greets, the first time that I'm meeting with someone to talk about their project. And a lot of times I was, in education, and I did, creation for companies at the corporate level. So, you've got the little images that fly out and, the words disappear. And as basic as it sounds for someone who, creates those things on a regular basis, people are really wild. Like, they are wowed by that. Like, wow, like, this is so professional. And, a lot of people that I work with, it's their first time working with a designer. So when you present that level of professionalism and you present, this is the process and this is how we do things, and there's little room for guessing. They know what's coming next. So if you refer back to that spreadsheet, if you look on your signature block on that email, then you'll see where we are and you can find all of your documents and all that stuff. So
I love that. That's so good. So before I let you go, tell me a little bit about the coaching that you do with interior designers. Just give us a little outline of it and, tell us about it.
So about a couple times a year, we do group coaching, depending on how much we have going on in the business of design for myself. But generally, we'll have small classes so it can reduce the cost so people aren't paying as much, for one-on-one. But just providing that soundboard. Actually, I think that group sessions are a little bit more beneficial because there are times where we have people who will bring up certain things. Designers will say, well, what would you do in this scenario? And then you say, oh, I never had that happen before, and let me think about what I would do. Or you can pose a question to your group and say, what would you guys do in this type of situation? And you can feed off of that, and we can decide, okay, if something like this happens, then what do we do? So I love group sessions. I feel like they're always the most beneficial because you get different perspectives and you get fun people. Creatives are fun people.
Yeah.
And I love that, I when you get coaching with me, you're going to get April. You're not going to get, the HGTV, personality. You're not going to get any of that. You're going to get me, the raw and the real, because I want you to be prepared for whatever you do. So group courses, but then we also do one-on-one sessions. So if someone feels like I need to just have specifics, because when we're doing group, we're going to start at the very beginning. So I love to start with, this is how you get your business substance, so your LLC or your S corp or whatever you're going to get. We're going to start there. So hopefully, if you do all the work and you put in the effort, by the time that you complete the course, you'll have a business plan, you'll have your website, you'll have your content for social media pages if you haven't started that. So I want you to have an experience to where when you get out there, you're not going to have to worry about little things like, oh, what do I do for bookkeeping, or I want you to be prepared for that. So we start at the very basic, and go there. But if you do one-on-one and you say, I already have my LLC, I already have this and that, so I don't need that. So we can focus on where you are and go from there. So
love it.
Just depends on where you're at, which one is more beneficial. But I want you to be prepared, because it's a jungle out there.
That's the truth. That is the truth. That's awesome. So, and you can get to that by going to alluringdesignschicago.com, which we will also put in the show notes, because there's a coaching tab there. You can see April's about page, and you're gorgeous. Your pictures are gorgeous. It's like, oh my God.
You.
And your portfolio is gorgeous too. I was talking about you, but your portfolio is also beautiful
thank you.
too.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, I mean, awesome. So I have to say, it's been a great pleasure getting to know you. I don't know how you've been out there undiscovered by me before this, but there you are in Chicago doing beautiful design and helping your colleagues make their businesses more profitable. And that is a combination. That is my kind of combination.
Well, you can see me on HGTV. We have.
See, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
That's how clueless I am about that stuff. And I don't remember that being in the bio you guys sent. I'm sure it is. I probably missed it. No, it's not there. It's not there.
They failed me.
Yeah, no.
Well, originally the show, it's called Renovation Resort Showdown. It aired in September. It aired in
of this year, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's probably wasn't there. This bio is probably they probably pitched you 6-8 months ago.
And that's what I was going to say. Originally, the show was in Canada. So it aired in Canada in March of this year. And we, at the time that we booked this session, we didn't have a date for the U.S. air. So it aired now. So it's Renovation Resort Showdown. It's a competition series with the hosts are Scott McGilvery and Brian Baumler. And it was a really cool experience. So you can catch me on that if you check it out.
All right. You'll have to send me the link so that we can put it in the show notes.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, it was fun getting to know you. I appreciate all the insights on renovations and, how to frame those client expectations and how to, do it a little bit more smoothly so that we can show up as professionals.
Yes.
Thanks so much, April, for being here.
You too. Thank you for having me. This was so awesome.
The relationship we have with our clients is you say important, crucial, right? Integral aspect of what makes our businesses successful. And among everything that April shared with us today, I kept hearing education, educating your client as much as you possibly can throughout the process, but particularly as she described, before you begin. This is what prevents that confusion and the breakdown of the relationship, right? Another benefit of explaining your process and educating your client in detail about what will take place is, as she explained, it's building trust. Because when you say what you will do, when you explain how things will work, and as the weeks unfold and all the things happen that you said, they are consciously and subconsciously thinking, oh, this company is reliable. This person does what they say they will do. I like that. That feels safe to me, right? And all this pre-work that you do is paving the way for this smoother experience for both of you, which is the win-win, right? Now, not too long ago, I had Zane and Emily Williams from Z Properties on the podcast, and they were also talking about tips that help you navigate healthy and happy relationships with your clients. So if you want another conversation in this same vein, please check out the show notes. We'll put the link there. Whether you are a new or seasoned designer, you want your clients to remember you and know that you do a great job and that you can be trusted for repeat work as well as referrals. You're building your reputation all along with all the things that you do, right? And keep in mind, preparing and educating your clients includes more than just providing information about the order of how things will happen. It also includes providing them with realistic expectations that they can grasp and that they can refer to as you go along, right? Another tip that April shared is the power of using renderings so that you're all on the same page. Having the ability for your clients to see what you are proposing and how you are about to transform their space before the demo crew arrives has proven to be very, very valuable to her. And I, as your garden variety consumer, can appreciate this so well, right? We don't have the ability to visualize like you guys do. And I just have to say, we have to mention our show sponsor here, Duke Renders. Duke Renders is your go-to for the highest quality renderings that will wow your clients and help you close the project. We'll link in the show notes the recent episode I had with Nicole Salcida, Elle Adori, and Fernando Duque from Duke Renders. So Nicole and Elle are designers who are using Duke Renders. And in this episode, they explain to you firsthand how using Duke Renders has made their projects better, made them more profit, and it's actually helped them push and flex their design muscles, their creativity as well. It's a fantastic episode. Don't miss it. Go to dukerenders.com, by the way, dukerenders.com/LuAnn, by the way, for special offers for Duke as a listener of the podcast. But we will link that episode in the show notes. Okay. Now, with all of this valuable information that April shared with us, what I love most is her simplest, most direct, easiest to implement strategy for keeping projects running smoothly. Have a checklist. I mean, she's dead on accurate, isn't she? I mean, you can imagine in the U.S. Air Force, even if you've flown a jet a gabillion times, you're never going to fly it, not once ever, without a checklist. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. They are not going to be like, hey, don't worry about it this time, right? So this is the thing, whether you are sitting in that cockpit and you're feeling like I'm on my A game or I'm a little tired, there is no option. And so the fact that April has taken this concept of checklist, and what I mean to say about this is, we all use checklists, but imagine her Erika Ward transferable skill here. As someone in the Air Force, they live and die by checklists. And so that level of carrying that over to her business. And I just think that there's something in that, in saying, oh yeah, I might do checklists, but do I do them to that level? And especially when you are working in design for construction or renovations, any project, but these are projects where if a step is missed or a mistake is made, it's a little bit higher risk than, oh, the rug is the wrong size. That stinks. You don't want to be in that situation, but it's a little easier to return a rug than it is to put a wall back, right? So I think that is just, my favorite tip of all, because what I love is the tips that are so obvious that we sort of go, oh yeah, right? So all right. Now, the client facing experience. Do you remember what she said was the best strategy to help the client navigate the process? Right? Okay. It was the same thing, a checklist, right? But she said a simple Google Doc template for your client to know what to expect. Not only is it an organized outline, but it is a visual tool for you and them to refer to when they have questions. And it shows them that you know what you're doing. And there's that trust builder again. And it makes sense. Think about it from a consumer standpoint. To have a guide giving you the answers about something you don't have any idea about, it's comforting, right? It's like having the designer virtually holding your hand. It's genius. I love it. And so great ideas, right? Great tips. And I just love it. And you can hear, what is the word I want? You can hear the process. I mean, you could just hear the process and system that she brings to everything, the organization, right? And keep in mind that April is offering group coaching. So if it only happens a couple of times a year, so keep your eye out if you want to grab a spot. Group coaching is always beneficial, and it's a fun way to get different perspectives and maybe to do things at a lesser price point than one-on-one. So if you're interested in learning more about April and her coaching or just her design firm, please go to alluringdesignschicago.com. We'll also link that in the show notes. All right, April, what a pleasure to get to know you. I just think it's awesome, and I will definitely go check out that episode on HGTV. And I hope for you listening that this episode brought you one step closer in your journey to being more organized and process-driven in your projects. Thanks tons for joining me today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn and April Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnandApril.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.